Good evening, everyone. My name is Colleen Swain, and I am the director of the City of San Antonio's World Heritage Office. Thank you for joining us for our 5th annual World Heritage Open House. Tonight is the final evening of our World Heritage Open House. As a reminder, there are 4 ways you can participate tonight. You can drop comments or questions in Facebook or YouTube live stream comments section. You can also call us at 210-207-2111, or you can send us a text message to 210-262-0025, or send us an email at worldheritage@sanantonio.gov. At the end of this week, we will post the presentations from all 3 evenings on our website, www.sanantonio.gov/World Heritage. We will also post a list of the questions and responses and links to surveys. Again, thank you for joining us this evening, and we appreciate your patience as we learn to navigate this new normal and continue the community process. At this time, I'm very happy to introduce Councilwoman Rebecca J. Viagran.
Hi, thank you, Colleen. Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Rebecca Viagran, council member for District 3, the south and the southeast side of San Antonio. Very proud to be here again on the 3rd night with you all. This is our final night of our World Heritage Open House in a different manner, but we want to make sure that we can get your input, insight, and also give you updates that you need. Last night, we heard about our bond projects. We heard from Public Works and Arts Department and others sharing about updates for our bond projects that you voted for and approved. It was very exciting. We heard about the new World Heritage Center facility that will be coming forward, and we're continuing to need your help and your input in answering surveys. And tonight, we're having another great conversation with a lot of our partners, and it takes working together for our incredible World Heritage area. So tonight you will be hearing from our planning department, from historic preservation, from the National Park Service, San Antonio, the San Antonio River Authority, Las Misiones, and again from our World Heritage Office. So thank you. We hope that you text. We hope that you call. We hope that you are sending in comments where you can, because we want to answer your questions and get to your questions. So with that, I am going to pass this over for a presentation from Carlos Guerra. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Councilwoman Viagran. Also, thank you to the World Heritage Office for including us today's discussion. And of course, thank you to you all who are attending virtually. Like the Councilwoman mentioned, my name is Carlos Guerra, a senior planner and project manager with the city's planning department. Today, I will be speaking briefly this evening on our department's initiative to implement the city's comprehensive plan, SA Tomorrow. Rogelio, is the screen share on?
Yes.
Okay, great. Could you go to the second slide, the challenge, expected growth?
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't see your screen. That's why. Okay. As many of us are aware, Bexar County is expected to add up to 1.1 million new residents over the next 20 years. This includes 500,000 new jobs and 500,000 new dwelling units by the year 2040. If we don't properly prepare for this growth, these impacts could have significant consequences on our overall quality of life. Next slide, please. In 2016, the city adopted 3 plans under the SA Tomorrow planning umbrella as a proactive way to address growth and outline steps in dealing with that growth. So we have the city's comprehensive plan, which is the city's long-range policy document for the city, as well as the sustainability plan, which is focused on being a resilient city, and the multimodal transportation plan, which focuses on the need for all modes of transportation, because as with more people comes more cars, more congestion, and more air pollution. Next slide, please. The SA Tomorrow Comprehensive Plan describes a framework of building blocks that will guide and help prioritize planning, design, and investment moving forward. These building blocks include complete neighborhoods, which of course we know neighborhoods are the backbone of the San Antonio community, and why many of you are listening in today. In the plan, we talk about preservation and housing within our neighborhoods. We also discuss complete neighborhoods where residents feel safe and have convenient access to the goods and services they use every day. With complete neighborhoods, it's important to have a network of streets, sidewalks, and trails that are interconnected. We also have urban centers. Urban centers are what we identify as walkable, mixed-use destinations that can serve as catalysts for community development. They usually have a mixture of housing and jobs and contain residents and business support services, as well as education, entertainment, and cultural amenities. These always vary in size and serve several different neighborhoods. We also have regional centers. In the next map, I'll show you 13 regional centers that were identified during the comprehensive plan, and these are identified. Each of these regional centers will have or already do have at least 15,000 jobs. The plan calls for enhancing these regional employment centers as places where people will also live, go to school, seek entertainment, and we're trying to create a variety of mixed-use centers around the city. The final building block is corridors. That will allow us to go from home to other areas of the community, whether it be work, education, entertainment, or recreational amenities. The city's corridors should be multimodal in nature, which includes all forms of transit, and be targeted for both housing and employment opportunities where appropriate. In both transportation and housing, the comprehensive plan promotes people having options and a great range of choices. Next slide, please. This map includes both the regional centers and community plan areas, which I just briefly described. The community areas are shown in orange and kind of go to a lighter shade of yellow. That's because we're doing this in phases. The entire planning process involves initiating plans over 5 years. So that's why you see those sub areas start to go to a lighter phase. For example, the areas in blue are our regional centers. So once again, those are the areas of 15,000 jobs or more. And then we have the community areas, which fill in the rest of the gaps within the city. And those plans are going to be more focused on the community. Next slide, please. So we've already initiated phases 1 and 2. The next will be phase 3, which will start in the fall of this year. This includes 4 regional center plans, Fort Sam Houston, Greater Airport, Rolling Oaks, and Stone Oak, and 2 community area plans, which include the Far East community area and the South community area, which is circled in orange on the map, which I will get into a little bit more detail on the next slide. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the overall South community plan area. The area starts generally south of downtown, south of Theo Road, and it's bound by Pleasanton Road to the west. It goes all the way down to the city limits to the south. It includes the Mitchell Lake Audubon Center, as well as the Mission del Lago development. And it also is bound by more or less South Bresa Street to the east. It's about at the railroad tracks, and includes a few neighborhoods that are just east of those railroad tracks. Next slide, please. This slide just shows some photos of some of the major landmarks within the area, just to get you familiar with it. Of course, like I mentioned, it's bound by those streets which have been identified through the sub-area planning process. The South Community Plan boundary covers areas that include the southern portion of the Roosevelt Corridor, South Flores Street, South Bresa Street, Mission Road, South Cross, the Stinson Airport area, and the Mission Reach. Next slide, please. Each sub-area is going to have key plan topics that are going to be specific to each of the sub-areas. And we begin by analyzing existing conditions. So we'll review existing plans and start identifying assets, challenges, and opportunities for each of the sub-areas. We'll bring that back to the community and gather data and community insights so that we can develop a set of vision and goals for the area. Now, the set of vision and goals is a very broad set, which will really inform our work as we get more details into the plan framework. Now, the plan framework will have specific recommendations for each of those elements listed. We focus on land use. We'll have recommendations for parks, public space and recreation, recommendations for transportation and mobility, recommendations for infrastructure and amenities. And then also identify focus areas and possible catalytic projects in the future. The focus areas are areas that the community has identified as places where there could be some kind of positive change to the area. The focus area highlight some of the challenges for specific areas, whether they be intersections, whether they be small retrofit projects, which kind of gets us into our catalytic projects section. The catalytic projects is really more of an illustrated example of what the community would like to see in the future. We can't hold developers to a specific set style of that we identify in the catalytic projects, but like I said, it's a good example of what the community desires. It really gives that visual feedback so that developers and council in the future, when they're making decisions, can consider those that vision when approving projects in that area. We'll also have economic development and housing strategies, and most sub-area plans will include neighborhood chapters, which I'll touch on in just a second. And finally, we'll have an implementation plan, which will identify how we can actually achieve those recommendations that the community and the planning team has agreed on. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, most sub-area plans will have a specific neighborhood chapter. We call it the Neighborhood Profiles and Priorities chapter. So working with neighborhoods and neighborhood associations, as well as previous neighborhood planning team members, we would like to celebrate some of the important accomplishments from the previous neighborhood plans, identify important recommendations that were not yet implemented and should be carried forward into the specific sub-area plan, and also to identify any new challenges that have come up since the adoption of the neighborhood plan. It's also important to consider that sub-area plans will not affect historic district designations or design standards, and it will not affect neighborhood conservation district designations or design standards. On issues such as land use and transportation, the sub-area plan will become the document of reference for things like plan amendments and zoning change applications, which is why it's so crucial that we get the neighborhoods involved when developing these sub-area plans. Next slide, please. So in developing this plan, it's about a 2-year process. We have a series of structured planning team meetings where we'll go through different elements of the plan, kind of like the plan framework, which I just showed. We'll be hosting community meetings. We also attend neighborhood meetings and give briefings on where we're at in the process and try to collect input. We'll be hosting focus group meetings. We'd like to host community intercept events in the future, and also each site will have its specific project area website where we'll have links to online surveys and other avenues that we can get feedback from the public without being there in person. So of course, this is important to note that this outreach process, specifically community intercept events and the in-person meetings, will have to be adjusted for COVID-19 safety protocols. Like we're going more towards a virtual type of way of getting input. And so that's probably where we're headed in the future as we develop this plan, which will likely begin sometime in the fall of this year. Next slide, please. And finally, this is a slide of different websites where you can get resources on further research or visuals that will kind of explain the comprehensive plan in a little more detail. You can visit us at satomorrow.com, sacomplan.com, sacorridors.com, or you can go to our department's webpage at sanantonio.gov/planning and find links there. Or if you have a specific question or that you might not be able to find on the site, or you're not able to stick around for the Q&A later, please feel free to email me at carlos.guerra2@sanantonio.gov. Next slide. It concludes my presentation, and I believe Claudia Guerra from Office of Historic Preservation is next. Thank you.
Good evening. Buenas tardes. I'm Claudia Guerra. I'm the city's cultural historian. I work in the Office of Historic Preservation, and I'm so happy to be with you here tonight to give you some updates on our office and some of the programs that matter to the World Heritage neighborhoods. Our director, Shannon Miller, and our Deputy Historic Preservation Officer, Kathy Rodriguez, who serves as the World Heritage Liaison, send their regards and wish they could be here with you, but they had previous commitments for tonight. So you got me instead. So the first thing I want to let you know is that we began working remotely in mid-March for the sake of the safety of OHP staff and our customers. And during this time, we have three primary goals. One, to seek ways to serve customers during COVID-19 in a way that is safe and responsive and takes into account active orders and best practices, such as offering contactless services. To adapt our programs to support community and businesses through the crisis, for example, serving as a resource for legacy businesses. And three, using common technologies to reformat existing program activities to continue services. We're doing videos and live streams on Facebook and offering online articles of human interest that concern historic preservation and heritage, as well as continuing to have applications be fillable online so you don't have to come down to the one stop. So what I'll be updating you tonight are on some of our programs, including the Living Heritage Program, the Vacant Building Program, Design Review and his HDRC, as well as Scout SA, which is our designation and survey program. So starting with the OHP Legacy Business Program, this is a program that supports businesses throughout the city. During the COVID-19 crisis, we are working with the Economic Development Department to identify small businesses, legacy businesses, that need assistance dealing with the pandemic and focusing on recovery. We've created a toolkit with these resources and a website promoting the businesses, including many in the World Heritage area, which will be live by the end of this month. Please nominate more businesses. These are businesses that make San Antonio authentic and have been in existence for 20 years or more, or serve the community in a way that promotes and preserves cultural heritage. You can nominate them by sending me an email at the address that's shown on the slide. Our Museum Without Walls is brand new. It's called Past, Present, Future. We created this during COVID-19 to convey living heritage lessons that we have learned from residents through oral histories and cultural mapping. We are including everything we've learned through interviews with residents and descendants of the missions. And we're also looking for more stories. We can safely conduct oral histories, so if you are interested, please contact me if you would like to schedule an oral history or suggest a story for us to research and put in our museum. The link to the museum is also shown on the slide. In the World Heritage area, the Vacant Building Program covers the Mission Historic District, a portion of the Central Business District, and a half-mile zone around those areas. Since the start of the program in 2015, 29 vacant properties have been transformed into well-maintained properties in the World Heritage Buffer Zone. Vacant building owners, please contact our team and we can talk about options you might have. For instance, owners of vacant properties subject to the Vacant Building Program can qualify for 5 different types of fee waivers. We want owners to invest in the good health of their properties, so the one that's most often granted is for owners doing work to bring their property up to the maintenance standard of care. We also have fee waivers for low-income owners and commercial properties that are kept in good repair. If you're marketing your property for sale or for lease, we can grant you a registration extension, so you don't have to worry about that deadline. And additionally, if a vacant property is in good condition, that owner doesn't even have to register in the program at all. Finally, you can contact our team or report a vacant structure by calling the number shown on the slide or emailing us at vbp@sanantonio.gov. COVID-19 has brought several changes to the way the public can interact with design review staff and the Historic Design Review Commission, as well as how applications are reviewed. As the situation develops, please continue to check our social media feeds, website, or subscribe to our newsletter for updates. The one-stop lobby is currently closed to the public, and so our staff is working remotely. The easiest way to submit a certificate of appropriateness request or a demolition review is through our online application portal. This can be easily accessed from the Office of Historic Preservation homepage on the website. The HDRC was the first city board to conduct virtual hearings through video conference. More than 120 cases have already been heard since May. There are multiple ways that people can tune in or participate in these meetings. Please go to our website for a complete listing of those ways. Meetings will continue to be online until further notice. Our website is also a good resource for reference materials like the Mission Manual, Historic Design Guidelines, and Design Resource Center. During this time, we have seen an increase in work to historic properties without approvals. Please help us identify potential violations by emailing report@sapreservation.com. Just as always, our design review team can also be reached at info@sapreservation.com or the phone number shown on the slide. Most of the World Heritage Area is already a designated historic district. However, there are portions that have not been designated. So we are still accepting applications for landmarks and districts. And remember that designation is the first step towards being eligible for tax incentives. There's no cost for landmark designations or district designation. Visit our website, scoutsa.com, where you can see the discovery map. This is a fun, interactive website which features a survey where you can share your own stories and places that are important to you. You can find historic photos, and you can also find information on surveys that have been conducted. And newly available, which is on our main web page, is the Explorer map. This is a place where you can go to help you identify designated properties and find case files, approval letters, and details from historic resource surveys. Finally, the Office of Historic Preservation is here to serve you. Please don't hesitate to contact us. This concludes my presentation, and I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Aaron Marr from the National Park Service.
Great, thank you, Claudia. Good evening, everybody. My name is Aaron Marr. I am the acting superintendent for the San Antonio Missions National Historical Park from the National Park Service. And this evening, I just wanted to alert all of our partners in the community about a change of leadership in the missions. Of course, the missions is a vital part of the World Heritage designation here in San Antonio, and the National Park Service takes this responsibility very seriously. So. As a result of the retirement of our superintendent, Marty Arce, the National Park Service has started the process of recruiting for a new superintendent. And during that interim process, they want to make sure that there's a continuity in leadership for the mission. So they've asked me to come in and provide that continuity until a permanent superintendent comes in to lead the park in the following years. So it's a great honor for me to be part of the World Heritage movement here in San Antonio. I'm eager to start this work. I've just been on the job now for about a week. This actually today is my full first week. So it's been quite an interesting experience. I've been learning about all my colleagues in the office and learning about all the resources that the park protects. Of course, we protect 4 of the missions, which are such an important part of the World Heritage listing, and then of course the acequia system, which is a really critical feature tying all of the missions together, and it's so close to the work that the San Antonio River Authority does also. So that's it's something that's very dear to my heart. I'm not a stranger to San Antonio. During my regular job responsibilities, I am the superintendent of the National Park Service's National Trail System. And part of that, in that portfolio, includes superintendent of the El Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail, in addition to the Camino Real de Tierra Adentro National Historic Trail. So those are 2 national historic trails in our trail system which commemorate the Spanish colonial experience in the southwest United States. And in particular, for the Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail, that's a trail that began in Mexico City and then wound its way up through northeast Mexico and into Texas, crossing the Rio Grande at Laredo, and continuing up through San Antonio and right through the Mission complex here in the metropolitan area. So it's something that I've been involved with for the last 20 years. So coming here to San Antonio is it's familiar ground for me. Many of the partners that I'm working with in the World Heritage Office and in the city government and in county government here and in state government are partners that I've been very familiar with and working with the Camino Real. So it's a great opportunity for me personally to reconnect with a lot of people, but also to help the park in going on to its next stage here. So that's my main focus, is just to introduce myself, alert all of our partners here in the community that the Park Service remains committed to leadership in the National Park Service presence here, and that probably the next time you all come together for a similar event, you'll probably have a new person sitting in my office, but that person will be just as committed and carry on that strong commitment that the National Park Service has had in working with all of you in San Antonio. So again, thank you very much, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be part of this effort, and I look forward to meeting you all in other circumstances where we might be able to have more face-to-face contact. That concludes my presentation, and I would like to introduce Suzanne Scott. Mrs. Scott is the director of the San Antonio River Authority. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Scott, and I'm the General Manager of the San Antonio River Authority, and I'm very pleased to be here this evening to give you an update on the Mission Reach. As you all are very aware, we have some wonderful missions that are on the banks of the San Antonio River, and we all know that part of the history of the development of those missions is the fact that the river was there providing water and all the flora and fauna that was necessary to support the missionaries that were there at those locations. And as part of that story, as we know, when the World Heritage Site was designated, they really indicated how important that the restoration of the river played in that designation, because we restored the ecosystem and created a more natural river. So the story of the connection between the river and the mission became much more evident with the restoration project that we had completed. With that, we've also learned with some recent work that has been done through the survey that the World Heritage Office has done in partnership with many of the partners, the SARA as well as the county and the city. We learned that many people are using the river to actually access the missions, which is a thrill to me, because that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have that wonderful trail system there along the river, is that people would use that trail system to connect and to enjoy these beautiful resources that we have at the mission. And we've seen that through the survey that in fact people are doing that. So you can see here in this photograph how beautiful the Mission Reach has become. Many of you who have been following the development of that project since the construction into the restoration and now really into the fact that this project is now really getting life. The trees are growing in, the vegetation is there, people are out there enjoying it. We're actually starting to see more shade along the trail. It's becoming a wonderful place for people to join their neighbors along the trails. We're also seeing many more paddlers. We really appreciate the fact that people are feeling bold and getting out there and enjoying paddling in the river, using those canoe chutes, and really having a great time on your river along the Mission Reach. That became even more important as we went through this time, this pandemic, when people were stuck in their homes, having to really be confined in those spaces. They wanted to get out. And we saw that increasingly on the Mission Reach. You can see by this graph here the increase in the number of people who have been enjoying the Mission Reach Trail really since March, when all of this started. You can start to see it building over time. In April, we hit some of our highest numbers of people using the Mission Reach. The orange bar that you see on this graph is what we've been seeing this year, and the blue bar is what we saw last year. So you can see in April, particularly, how much more traffic we had along the Mission Reach. Many of you that live down there probably saw that firsthand. But this is really exciting that people were out using the Mission Reach and enjoying this wonderful place. Everyone needed some respite, and it was so nice to be able to provide it along the Mission Reach. One of the other things that we've been doing is we've been completing our avian study. We've been talking about this for the last 3 years. We had a very science-based count of all the birds that have been coming through the Mission Reach. We were counting migratory birds. We had an expert that's very familiar with the birds that fly in this area, and we wanted to do a specific count of those birds. And we have done that. We've completed that study, but we're still continuing with monitoring the bird habitat. And we have found, and many of you may have seen some of these birds that are here on the slide, and many more. And we have a bird list on our River Authority website that if you're interested in that, we encourage you to go and visit that. But we have now seen, just until recently, got a new one. We have 203 bird species enjoying the restored habitat along the Mission Reach, and 65,000 birds have been counted over this 3-year period that we've been counting these birds. So it's an amazing return. The actual restoration project is working. The habitat is coming back. Both fish and birds are really using this restored ecosystem. Another element of the habitat that we're really excited about are these freshwater mussels. These mussels are actually located within the Mission Reach. You wouldn't know them because they're buried in the dirt at the bottom of the river. But these species show how healthy the river actually is. These mussels would not be able to be there and thrive if they didn't have the right ecosystem, and the water quality if the water quality were not good enough, they would not be there. So this is an indicator that the water quality is improving, that this habitat is ripe for this type of freshwater mussel. So we're doing a pretty comprehensive study, the scientists at the River Authority, to study these mussels, count them, see how well they are reproducing, so that we can show that the Mission Reach is a prime place for this type of habitat. We are actually leading the state in studying these freshwater mussels, so we're very proud of that. And your Mission Reach River is the home for these freshwater mussels. We're also seeing a lot more development now picking up along the Mission Reach, and you are starting to see more of that bankside development. So this is just one example. The housing, the Mila housing development that's there has now connected into the Mission Reach. We work directly with them to make sure that that trail connected into the Mission Reach, and we're doing that with many other developers. We know that just recently in the newspaper, there was a announcement that the Lone Star development is now moving forward. We've been working with that developer as well. The CPS development there, the old power plant, there's some ideas about developing that as well. So we're working with all those developers to make sure that as we move forward, that development is integrated nicely into the Mission Reach. On a couple of other projects, Confluence Park, very popular. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to have all of our educational programming there because the schools, of course, were closed. We didn't have enough opportunity to have that education that we normally have there. We've had to go virtual with some of our yoga classes, but this is still a very popular destination for those folks that are enjoying the Mission Reach. One thing that you may notice if you've been there is that we're actually connecting the pavilion actually directly to the river. So where you see that staircase there on the side of the banks, the public has made their own trail down to the river in that location. So we're making that formal with some funding that was provided by the city and Sarah to make sure that we could get that connection down to the river So that construction is going on right now. As far as other things that we're doing, we are, you probably have seen, being down there on the Mission Reach, we have an increase in the number of the Egyptian geese that are along the banks of the river. We're doing a count on those geese. And I would just like to encourage you, if you're out there, to please don't feed these geese. I think a lot of people feel like they need food, so they leave food out there, and unfortunately, that's not healthy for these geese, and it provides an unnatural habitat for them, and they become very aggressive if they don't have the food, and they'll come up to people and try to get that food. So we're trying to encourage people through education that the best thing you can do is to let the geese feed on the natural environment. So we would ask your help in that regard. Other things that we've been doing is, you know, that we've been doing our prescribed burns in the area. That's been very helpful to the restoration of the ecosystem. It's a very good maintenance strategy that we're using. And we're also out there doing some erosion repairs. You may have seen that in some of our recent storms, some of the erosion has occurred on the banks of the river. We're out there using some natural channel design techniques to restore that ecosystem, restore that bank so it can be even stronger going forward in the next storms. So you're seeing that type of activity as well. So again, a lot going on out there, and we hope that you're enjoying the Mission Reach, and we hope to see you soon again on the river. And I would like to introduce Rebecca Simmons from Los Misiones as your next presenter. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Simmons, and I'm here today on behalf of Los Misiones, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the space behind Mission Concepcion. Many of you may be familiar with Mission Concepcion, of course, one of our great 18th century Spanish missions. Well, behind it is kind of a piece of property that's in a little disarray, but there are some big plans for that property, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So let's turn for a minute and let me describe kind of the current state, what's there now. Well, there are some lovely apartments that were built, the St. John apartments, that are kind of in that area, but in addition to that, in that piece of property, you can notice two buildings. One of them is a old chapel, and the other one an old cafeteria, because that property originally housed St. John Seminary, and it educated priests for the San Antonio and for the world over the course of several decades, but ultimately was moved over to join Assumption Seminary on Woodlawn Avenue. So that space was leased out and ultimately became abandoned and a little bit derelict. So I want to talk to you a minute about those plans for the old chapel and the cafeteria, and they're going to become what's known as the Padre Marhill Pilgrimage Center. You've heard discussion tonight about people that walk that river trail and lots of visitors to our missions. In fact, we get over a million visitors a year to our San Antonio missions, coming to experience them. And we want to assist those visitors that want to experience the missions as sacred space, a space where they can reflect, when they can connect with the sacred in their lives. And so we are going to rehabilitate those buildings into that kind of use. So the chapel will become sort of a museum and gathering space and reflecting space for pilgrimage visitors. And the cafeteria will become more of the offices for Mission Concepcion, but also a conference space where there could be lectures or meetings or even events for these visitors that are coming to enjoy our missions. So you can see the site plan. It is directly behind Mission Concepcion, and you can see, though, a lot of really nice trees. There's some beautiful pecan trees there. Of course, we will try and do everything to save those trees. Also, interestingly enough, the old Mission Concepcion acequia that provided the water for the mission actually flowed through this property. And when they were looking at the renovation site and looking at the site plan, they actually rediscovered that acequia. And that will be noted on the site, of course. So we have some beautiful pictures here of kind of the outdoor patio area that's going to be in between the Pilgrimage Center itself and the kind of the conference area. And that will be available for people just to come in and take a rest and get in that shade away from that San Antonio sun, particularly if they're walking the whole way along the river. So we hope this will really be a welcoming space for everyone to enjoy. In addition to that, you can see, and this is an old rendition of the chapel, it may not look exactly like this, but that center area will have still some of the beautiful aspects of the chapel, such as its stained glass and some of its beautiful woodwork. And so we're hoping people will come and enjoy and learn a little bit more about Padre Marhill, who founded Mission San Jose, which is celebrating its 300th year in our community. So, of course, it's important to know what is the timing, and we're happy to report that we finally have completed the construction documents, and we're really getting ready to start the site preparation, and we'll probably be doing that in the next month or so. We're also working on the permits so that we can start the really heavy-duty renovation probably within 60 days or so, and we hope to have this completed within 12 months of that. Again, we're not really building anything, we're renovating, so we hope it won't take as long as other things, and we're hoping that the pandemic won't deter our efforts further. So thank you for your time. I hope that you can come and visit us once we open. We're looking forward to all of you. And I want to conclude my presentation and turn this back over to Colleen Swain. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. We've received a few questions, so keep them coming, and we will answer them as quickly as possible. So the first one is a comment that we received on YouTube that there was a conflict with another event that is occurring at this time. Don't worry, because we will post the videos on our YouTube channel, and you can always share the live stream with your friends so that if they missed it, they can see it. So now we have a couple of questions for our San Antonio River Authority. So if I've got Suzanne Scott, I'm going to ask her the first question, and then I have one for planning. So the first question is for Suzanne Scott. Hello, I see a lot of bikers on the Mission bike trails without wearing a mask. Suzanne, are you?
Yes. Thank you for that question. Yes, we do see that. The CDC does not require or give guidance that when you're outdoors, you don't have to wear a mask. And plus, they've also stated that as people are exerting more energy, they really prefer that they not wear the mask because they want to make sure that they don't affect their breathing as they're exercising. So we do encourage, though, everyone to keep their social distance while they're riding their bikes and to be careful about when they do get off their bikes and are trying to walk their bike back to their car or wherever they are. They need to put their mask back on. So we do advise that practice.
Okay, I have another question for Suzanne Scott with the San Antonio River Authority. Mission San Jose Neighborhood Association loves our Mission Reach. What can Sarah and our neighborhood do to make sure it is cleaned immediately after a storm, a big rainstorm?
That's a very good question, and that's one of our biggest challenges. It is a big river, lots of trails. So let me just talk to you a little bit about what our approach is with maintenance. First thing first is after the rain has concluded and it's safe for our people to get back out there, the first thing we do is we clean the trails off. So our guys go out there and try to get the trails passable. Then the next phase is to make sure that we start to pick up the trash and all the debris and all the other things that end up on the river. And we oftentimes get contractors to help us with that, but it's a daunting task. Some rain events bring in a lot more debris than others. But the one thing that we would encourage people to do is the biggest thing that we see along the river after rain events is trash. And that trash is coming from the neighborhoods that are adjacent to the river because it comes in through the outfalls into the river. So we would encourage you to make sure that you keep your trash in the bins, that you do as much as you possibly can to manage trash from your neighborhoods. Pick up bottles or trash that you may see that's in the street even when it's not raining, because what happens is all that goes into those inlets that you may see, the stormwater inlets, and then it waits there until that next big rain event comes, and then all of that's been accumulated is pushed out into the river. So it is a lot of trash, and it comes all the way up into the watershed. So we're trying to educate people about making sure that they properly dispose of their trash. But you're right, it is a daunting task. We are trying to get the cleaning done as fast as we possibly can, but it does take some time. So we appreciate your patience on that, but we're working hard, and we do bring contractors in to even do it faster.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. I have a couple more questions. We have a bird habitat in our backyard. We have noticed a variety of birds that have not been around before. Is this affected by the Mission Reach?
Yes, actually, there is a lot more birds that have come back to the restored habitat because the habitat is more friendly to birds. We have better trees, better cover for the birds. They feel safe. There's also better habitat in the river for them to get all the little bugs that they eat and all of the habitat that's necessary to support their survival along the river. So yes, we definitely do have more birds, more migratory birds during migratory bird season. If there's a bird that you've seen, a couple of things that you can do is either you can take a photo of that bird and you can send it to us at the River Authority, go on to any of our social media channels and share that, or there are iNaturalist apps that you can go online. You can take a photo of a bird that you've seen, and it'll actually identify it for you through the app. But we would love to know too, so put it on our social media channels, and we'll definitely get someone back with you to let you know what that bird is.
Okay. One more question. Well, actually, I have a question and a comment. So what about traffic? Parking spots are very limited and causes vehicles to park in the bike lanes. We need infrastructure to accommodate the parking situation at Confluence Park area.
That is a very good question and a very great observation. We agree that there's probably not as much parking at Confluence as demand would suggest that we need, just because it's such a popular destination and a lot of people are using it as a trailhead as well. So we are trying to figure out some options going forward as to areas that we could potentially have parking. One of the things that we're working with some of the development that's occurring in the future is maybe having some opportunities to join with those businesses, that maybe when those businesses aren't having their own clientele there, maybe we can have parking there for people that are using the trail system. So the trail has increased in its usage, and we do need to find some additional places for parking. So we are working on that, and obviously we'll continue to work with the World Heritage Office as well to see where we can do that. But there are several locations along the river that we would encourage you, if you have a favorite spot that's always Confluence Park that you like to park at, maybe try to find another place that can be maybe your alternate location so that you can find a place that you can park and enjoy the river. And please look at our maps online. That you may not be aware that there's other places where you can park. We have a full map of our Mission Reach on the San Antonio River website, San Antonio River Authority website, and I'd encourage you to go there too, so that maybe you can find other locations to park.
Okay. Well, thank you. And then I have a comment for you, Suzanne. It says, thank you for explaining why the trail portion along Lone Star Brewery property is under construction. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we go to Carlos? Is that possible? We have a question for Carlos.
Yes, I'm available.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Carlos. Will SA Tomorrow Group still meet with the Phase 2 area neighborhoods? For example, Mission San Jose neighborhood. We met last year once, but we've never met again.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that question. The Mission San Jose neighborhood is actually within the South Community Plan, which is a Phase 3 plan. So the short answer is yes. Back when we were still in Phase 2, I do recall meeting with the neighborhood. I believe it was at the neighborhood retreat just to kind of get some preliminary ideas, but we had not officially kicked off the phase 3 plans. The original intent was to begin those plans in March, but of course, we had COVID-19, so we had to kind of adjust our meeting schedules. But yes, Mission San Jose will be involved in the plan, or at least I hope to get them involved in the plan. I will be reaching out to the representatives. If whomever asked the question would like to contact me, that would be great. If you want to shoot me an email at carlos.guerra2@sanantonio.gov, I'd be glad to talk with any neighborhood issues you might have and really start getting you involved. But like I said, it's part of phase 3, which we will begin in the fall of this. Thank you.
Okay. Now I have a question for the National Park Service. What was the result of the funding bill in Congress that would go towards maintenance for our missions and National Park Service? So we're going to have to switch, so just allow us a moment.
Great, thank you, Colleen, and thank you for the question. Of course, the legislation is pending, so I'm unable to comment on the legislation specifically, but it will target, hopefully, a significant deferred maintenance backlog that the National Park Service has had for many years. And the San Antonio missions, we've identified a maintenance backlog in excess of $10 million. So there are many things that a significant funding increase can go to. We've targeted maintenance needs in the buildings, in the acequias, and even the exhibits throughout the park. So, if the legislation does come to be and the funding does come, then we've got a list of many projects that can be accomplished with this increase and with this increased capacity. So we're excited that perhaps this will really help to address that backlog and provide greater experience for the American public and help to preserve those resources in perpetuity.
Thank you. And I believe that the Great American Outdoor Act is the name of the bill, and it has passed the Senate, and we are waiting on House approval. We have one last question for Rebecca Simmons. What happens if any historical remains are found at the site?
Hi. I just want to speak to you just a minute because I interpret that question two ways. I'll address first historical remains as being human remains because that has come up quite a bit. Thankfully, the sites that we're dealing with at the Pilgrimage Center are they're renovations. So there has been no digging. There's no digging approved or anything else. When I talked about the acequia being discovered, there are many parties at play in this, the Texas Historical Commission and lots of other entities that are interested in history will oversee any sort of digging or because there are artifacts at the missions, as there are human remains, most likely. And so we have a protocol in place at the Archdiocese, because that's who actually owns the property, in place. If human remains are found, we work closely with the indigenous descendants on that. Human remains were found at San Juan, and we developed a protocol there as well. So we don't think we will run into anything like that because we just aren't digging. We're actually renovating existing structures.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I just wanted to also let everyone know, I think you're going to Historic Design and Review Commission July 1st. I think that's a possibility. And then we also, the World Heritage Office has a project under the US 90 underpass at Mission and Steves. We installed with our Arts and Culture Department some public art there, and we'll be presenting some infrastructure, landscaping, and pedestrian improvements. So that's good news that we're moving forward with that project. And so I don't seem to have any more questions, and I believe the Councilwoman would like to make a few remarks before we wrap it up. Councilwoman Viagran?
Thank you, Colleen. I just wanted to, again, thank you all for being a part of this process, this very new process that we are going through with our open house, day 3. I want to also thank the World Heritage Office for their work and their diligence, and all of our partners and everyone who has been a part of this process, our World Heritage Open House, our 5th annual World Heritage Open House this year. It takes all of us working together, and so I appreciate you all being here, but then I appreciate you all asking the questions and being engaged. I always say that District 3 represents the past, the present, and the future, and this is an example of that. So we still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue to work together on all of these items. So with that, I'd like to then turn it back. But first, before I remind you to please be sure to wear a mask if you are going out in public, and keep 6 feet apart. Do your part for social distancing, just like our great team was in studio with the hand sanitizing, etc. And then I would also like to ask those of you who have recovered from COVID-19 that you please consider donating your plasma, because we really need it in our hospitals right now. So thank you all very much. Colleen, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Viagran. So just to remind everyone, if you did not get the opportunity to submit a question this evening, but think of something later, you can still participate by either calling us, leaving a message at 210-207-2111. You can also email us at worldheritage@sanantonio.gov. Those are great ways to get your question to us so that we can make sure we get it answered. At the end of this week, we're going to post all the presentations from all 3 evenings. We will also post a list of questions with responses, and we will have surveys online for the street renaming and for the World Heritage Facility. So don't worry if someone missed yesterday's live presentations, those will be uploaded to YouTube. So I just want to say thank you for joining us for our 5th annual World Heritage Open House. And a huge thank you to our presenters this evening. And thank you, Councilwoman Rebecca J. Viagran, and good night, everyone.